So welcome everybody to our Masters in Photojournalism class. We're just going to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves, and we'll start with Chris.
Hi, I'm Christopher Asaf. I am currently a first-year PhD student at the University of Texas at Austin in journalism and media, specializing in visual communication. I was almost a 3-decade photojournalist, editor and videographer and such for various newspapers and magazines. My last stint was at the Baltimore Sun, where I was from 2003 to 2016. Started as a staff photographer, worked into video in 2008, became an editor for Projects and Sundays from 2014 to 2016. Very glad to be here. Thanks.
Todd.
Okay, I'm Todd Maisel, and I am the currently the breaking news editor at AM New York, one of the publications, Schnepp's Publications. We are the flagship daily in the city. I have been the editor of at there for a little over a year now, and I'm planning to retire at the end of the week. At least semi-retired.
Retiring, Todd?
I'm semi-retiring.
No, when?
What's that?
When are you retiring?
I'm retiring at the end of the week.
That would be Friday.
Friday, yes. Yes. I'm retiring because I have to write my book. That's for sure. But they don't pay me enough money to stick around, really. 18 years at the Daily News as a staff photojournalist. And I've held various positions over the years as editors and writer, and I do everything except sweep the floors, and sometimes I do that.
Awesome. Matt.
Hey, I'm Matt, as he just said. I'm down here in Gainesville, Florida, where I am. My full-time job is photographer for a community college here. And a lot of our students go to UF, as you can imagine, here in Gainesville. But I also do a lot of freelance on the side for the Associated Press, a lot of sports, like a lot of Gator games, and you know, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa's all close by. So I'm around Florida quite a bit. Before that, I was in newspapers for about 15 years, a little town outside of Louisiana, or outside of New Orleans, and then over at the Gainesville Sun here in Gainesville. So a lot of newspaper work in my background, and was at K-State before that, where I met Bradley. So
Go Wildcats.
Go State.
Go Cats.
Right, too, yeah.
Go Gators. Right over left. Hands fully extended.
Well, I'm not a fan of the Gators, but whatever, I'll do it.
Yeah, you got some good shots at the game. All right, Scott.
My name is Scott Strazzanti. I'm a staff photographer at the San Francisco Chronicle. I've been out on the West Coast for 6 years. Before that, I spent 50 years in Chicago, the last 13 at the Chicago Tribune. Besides being a photojournalist, I always have to have like something working on the side. So I've done a couple books, one called Common Ground, which was a 14-year documentation of a piece of farmland that got transitioned to subdivision. And then I did a second book on iPhone street photography from the Hipstamatic app. And now my latest passion is I do abstract ocean photos whenever I get the chance. So always trying to stay busy and stay fresh and evolved. And, you know, because the newspaper business, you know, I love it, but after 30 some years, it gets to be a little repetitive. So good to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Bradley.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Just in the record of gender diversity, I did invite quite a few female photographers, but they didn't accept. So I guess Ellen Banner and Carol Guzzi and the other crowd were just too busy to join us tonight. So thank you guys for joining us very much. So let's just go around the room, and we'll start with Alicia. And if you guys can introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there.
I unmuted first this time.
Right.
I'm Alicia Merrifield. I teach at a private school down in Houston, Texas. I was an English teacher, what I thought was going to be for life, when the yearbook teacher quit. And they said, hey, you like to take photos of your kids' sports. You'd make a great yearbook advisor with your, you know, English background. So I now run 3 yearbook classes, a photojournalism class, 2 graphic design classes, and a newspaper class. So that's me.
Awesome. Stephen.
Hello, I am a newspaper editor turned teacher. So I am in my 5th year advising student media, including photography class, 2 design classes, intro journalism, and then a yearbook newspaper website about an hour north of Houston.
So we have Texas well represented. Michelle.
I am Michelle Corbett. I am a yearbook advisor at Indian Trail High School and Academy in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I also teach digital publications, which is a really stupid name for introduction to yearbook, but I did not name it that. So also hopefully starting a photojournalism class next school year as we look at expanding our journalism program at our school. So
Awesome. Elizabeth.
I'm Elizabeth. I'm in my 6th year teaching, and this year I'm doing newspaper and yearbook. This is my first year doing yearbook, so.
Awesome. Kevin.
Hello, guys. My name's Kevin. Like he just said, let's see, I was one of those people that had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I started off as an actor for 10 years, and I also worked as a substitute teacher, track coach. Then I got into journalism. First market was in Little Rock, Arkansas. Second market was in Tyler, Texas. And now I am in Sacramento, where I work as a newscaster for ABC 10.
Kevin, learn something new about you every week.
I could write a book, but we don't have time for that.
Get together with Scott and Todd, and Matt and Chris, actually, everybody. All right, Laura.
Hi, my name is Laura Minerva. I'm in my 15th year of teaching at Barrington High School in Barrington, Illinois. And I teach English and I advise the newspaper, teach journalism. And this semester I'm doing the yearbook, filling in for the yearbook teacher who's on maternity leave. We finished a deadline last night, so
Yay!
tired but excited.
Sorry, got distracted there. Danielle.
Hi, my name is Danielle Ryan, and I have been teaching journalism for 15 years in Carlsbad, California, at Carlsbad High School. I do newspaper, which is a news magazine and online, and yearbook. And then I also am working with our online only school this year and doing a little kind of middle school yearbook for them as well. So lots of yearbooks in my life right now.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. Because our online school went from like 30 kids to over 1,000 because so many parents kept their kids at home. So they need a yearbook.
Fascinating. I did not know that. All right, Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Willis, and I teach 7th grade language arts and ELD at a K-8 school in Southern California.
What's ELD?
English language development. It's for students who are English as a second language.
Development. Okay. Thank you. All right, Melissa.
Hi, so I'm Melissa Steininger. I am an anchor reporter in Albany, New York, with Spectrum News. So we're a 24-hour news network. Not yet a teacher, still kind of going down that path, thinking, that I want to inspire the next generation of journalists eventually. So this program's definitely been really wonderful with that, and I've been learning a lot.
Awesome. Jacob.
I'm Jacob Wilkin. I teach at a public high school in Wichita, Kansas. I am a 3rd year journalism teacher, and that includes newspaper, yearbook, broadcast, and most recently a podcast.
And let's see if Heather gets in here just in time. Heather, we're just introducing ourselves to the crowd. Let's see, did she make it? Did she make it? Did you make it, Heather? So I put a senseless, I told Scott I would give a senseless plug for his book.
I'm here, sorry.
There we go. There's my senseless plug for Scott's book. All right, Heather, we're just introducing ourselves, so go for it.
I'm Heather Pullum, and I teach at Poplar Bluff High School. I do business instead of journalism, but trying to learn, so.
Awesome. And all of these students are in the master's program at Kent State University, working on their master's degree and in teaching, what is the actual program name? Teaching journalism?
Yeah, journalism education.
Journalism education, okay. Awesome. So I like I did last week, I'm going to start by just asking the four of you guys a general question, and then I'm just going to open it up and see who's got questions, because they always have. This is a group that is not shy on having questions, which I really appreciate. So my first general question for everybody is: these are going to be someday teachers in the school classrooms teaching future photojournalists. So between the four of you, I think there's something like 100 years of experience out there. What advice would you have for them? What advice would you suggest that they give budding photojournalists, given where the market is today? And you come from such a great variety of backgrounds. We'll hear a great variety of answers, and we'll start with Chris.
I would say, to be flexible, to be willing to not think that you're just going to work for newspapers or you're just going to work for magazines. That's kind of not where it's going to be anymore. You can still find your niches, but it may not end up being, say, at the Baltimore Sun or the San Francisco Chronicle or AM New York. I mean, before I came back to the PhD program, I spent 2 years in working at Salisbury University in their marketing department as a videographer and editor. So, that's kind of what it is. But, the important thing is to figure out, how to tell stories visually, and, and figure out where you can apply your skills and how to get into it. If you're a business person, business minded, that's where freelancing and contract work can come in. If you're like me and prefer a little more stability, you go to the places, where employers are. But basically it's be willing to move around a little bit in the market to find your niche. It may not be where you intend. I mean, I don't know about you, Matt, but did you plan on being at the, working at a community college and freelancing for the University of Florida at this point in your career?
Not at all. I thought I was going to be a forever newspaper guy. I wanted to be that, the guy that retires from the newsroom and they have a big cake and a party for him as he walks out on his last day. But
Todd, you wanted to be Todd.
I wish they were going to have a cake for me, and they're doing a big Zoom party for me on Thursday. It's not going to be the same. I want the hugs.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of it is get them specialized, but have them prepared to figure out where their niche is going to go. Because it may be video, it may be stills, it could be podcast. But right now, they may want to be photojournalists. Not everybody though. Like I started out when I was 15, and some of you may know her, Susan Cohenauer, who's now Susan Massey, was my high school advisor, and we're still good friends. And then Linda Putney at K-State was my yearbook advisor, and then Dave Adams and Ron Johnson were my newspaper advisors. So, I've had a lot of people with their hands in my career, but I always knew I wanted to be a photojournalist, a newspaper photojournalist. I would not have thought 30 years, later plus, I'd be, working on a PhD at the University of Texas of Austin at all places. And I didn't think I'd be married to my high school girlfriend from 35 years ago either, but that happened as well. So you never know what's going to happen.
Matt, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I can chime in a little bit. And first of all, like the three other speakers I've looked up to for years, so I don't feel worthy. I'm like, I want you guys talk. I want to listen to y'all. But so it's kind of cool to be here with y'all. But
which, by the way, Susan Massey was one of our speakers. Oh, here comes one of our speakers right now who's late. I'll let her. Matt, you go ahead, and we'll have her introduce herself in a second.
Okay. Yeah, but kind of piggyback off what Chris said. One of the things that helped me, like I said, I was a newspaper guy for 15 years, and that's all I ever did. Like from the time I was 18 to 35, I was newspapers, and so to step away from journalism like I did, what helped me was telling myself that I was still a storyteller, and so that's kind of what I hold on to, is like I might not be a journalist per se. I do some freelance, of course, but I'm still telling stories with my camera. And whether it's a portrait or a football game or whatever it is I'm doing, I just want to tell a story, and you can do that, and you can communicate that no matter what who you're shooting for, how you're shooting, what the publication is, or what the outlet or what the audience is, whether it's a TikTok or a magazine assignment. You know, you're trying to tell a story, and that, like, I hold on to that with dear life, because I think, you know, that's what we're doing. But the one thing I wish I did better, you know, growing up, and I'm still working on this now, is building relationships. I would always tell myself, okay, just be a fly on the wall and don't be noticed. Well, then I wouldn't talk to anybody. And what good is that? Like, what's a journalist that doesn't talk to anybody? And so once I told myself, build relationships, whether it's with a subject, a source, a principal, an athletic director, whoever, just make friends, get to know them, put down the camera and chit chat a little bit, and then start taking a picture. And that's helped me in the portrait game this last few years, for sure.
All right, Scott.
Yeah, I think it's important to find a community, whether it be online or in person. Like for me, it's like Matt, we used to be, and Christopher also, I think, we used to be on A Photo a Day, which used to be this online listserv where people would send in one photo a day and people would comment on it, and you'd get to know people's names through their work. And then when you'd meet them in real life, you'd be like, oh my God, that's Matt Stamey. I loved your last photo that I saw you last week, you know? And so, and you have this connection. And I think it's so important, especially nowadays with so many photographers out there and people being able to self-publish their own work on the internet or go on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, that, you know, to kind of have a community of friends, of peers, who eventually maybe will become an editor or a director of photography. And not that you want to get a job that you're not worthy of, but it's always good to know people and to hear about jobs. And you know, for me, like when I was starting out, I had so many people give me a leg up and help me out and give me advice and look at my work and critique me. And it's always important to have people around you, because if you try to go at it by yourself, you know, it's going to be a struggle. So, you know, it's really important to you know, find a group of friends, whether it's at your high school or college or wherever it is, or like I said, online, and just kind of learn from each other, because it's definitely a lot more fun that way, and you learn a lot faster. So, you know, I was lucky to be surrounded by a lot of amazing photographers, because I was starting to, you know, kind of grow up, and I was inspired by them, and it made me a better photographer for sure.
And Scott, you relatively recently made the move from Chicago to California. What have you found that to be like?
It's been refreshing. You know, it's like in Chicago, you know, I loved, you know, working at the Tribune, but, you know, it was kind of, you know, shooting the same parade 13 years in a row, or, you know, just kind of doing the same thing over and over again, which can be good and a good challenge, but I just needed a change. And also the last winter in Chicago in 2014, one day it was 25 below zero, and I was out by Adler Planetarium with my eyes frozen shut, and I'm like, I think I need a change. And luckily I got a job offer to come out to California, and I don't regret it at all. And it's been cool meeting a new group of people out here. And you know, I landed in a great place at a great time in the newspaper's history. Really exciting group of young image makers at the paper, and very diverse staff. And it's been really, you know, great for me, and it's motivated me. And so yeah, it definitely has helped me extend my career. And you know, I'm you know, still have an eye eventually to maybe go freelance someday. My fiance and I have a home in Asheville, North Carolina that we rent out, and we're thinking of maybe moving out that way in 2 or 3 years, and, you know, maybe kind of starting a new freelance career out that way. And, you know, it's like, you know, I think, you know, I love newspapers, but, you know, there's, you know, always trying to have another challenge in my life is good. So, you know, it's probably not a great time to give up a staff job, but, you know, you never know. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll end up staying, but, you know, always looking for a fresh start at times.
My first publisher retired and moved to Asheville, and he swore that we were going to find him in his cabin dead on the side of the hill one day. And I just found out yesterday that he moved to Florida because he needed to have his wife's kids help take care of them. So he's going to be in Florida now instead of Asheville. That destroys my entire image of you. All right. Speaking of moving and retiring, Todd?
Yeah, well, 38 years in the business, all newspapers. I've always been in newspapers. I've been in multiple positions as an editor, but 18 years as a staff photographer at the Daily News. What that's taught me is that you have to be diversified. You have to have multiple skills. And I tell my students that all the time. I say, if you can't write and do a cogent caption, what are you doing? You need to be able to explain your story. You need to be able to put it out there. I have found that because I have multiple skills, the ability to write, that even though I was laid off from the Daily News, it didn't matter. I was independent of them. I was always independent of them. I could always move on and do something else. There was plenty of places that I can work at that would need the kind of skills that I have, the multiple skill sets. And I find a lot of the people who had a hard time after they got laid off were the people who were very narrow in their skill sets. And they had a harder time getting traction in the business with other publications, with other news outlets. Those people who were more diversified, had video skills and such, were able to get jobs in TV. They were able to get jobs at different places. Again, it's about having multiple skill sets, but also is to be as independent of your employer as you can be. I always tell people, wait a second, look at the stock market. How come you're not in there? Why aren't you in there? Look at how much money people are making. So yeah, I can retire. I've always been that way. And so when the Daily News got rid of me, well, too bad. Okay, your loss. I was still independent of them, and it didn't matter as much. Again, they treated me nice on the way out, but I didn't depend on them in the end. And so that's what I try to tell people: is be as independent as possible. Always expect that that job is not going to stay forever. That something's going to happen, and you might need to go somewhere else and have other skill sets.
It's interesting that in one way or another, Matt, how much writing do you do in your job? Do you do any writing at all?
Writing, yeah, I do a little bit. We profile a student, faculty, staff, alum, donor, something like that every week, and so it's just basically a portrait and a quick interview with it's a human of New York kind of profile every week, and so I write little 3-paragraph stories, quite a bit, and captions, of course. I caption every image so they can be searched for archive stuff. But yeah.
So all of our photographers here have some piece of their job that's writing in some way, shape, or form. So Lauren Roberts has joined us. Lauren, is your video working, or do you not want to see it? Just to see you. Lauren is a photographer here in Wichita Falls and graduated also from SCAD with working in audio. So she, like Todd said, has quite a variety of background. So Lauren, you want to introduce yourself, and then if you have some advice for the group.
I'm
There
not
she
sure
is.
about advice. I feel like I'm probably younger than everyone here. That's what I'm going to tell everybody. I've only been working for, what is it, like 5 years now? So I feel like everything Scott and whatever I heard Matt and Todd say, it's like those are I guess the people you should listen to. It just feels like for me, it's like I guess I'm trying to move on really from journalism, trying to find that next step of where to go for because it seems like I got in with everything constantly changing, because we were bought by, I don't know, I feel like I haven't had a different job, but I've worked for 3 different companies in the last 5 years. So it's been kind of weird a bit. Every so often I get a new job title, even though I do the exact same thing. So I just do more stuff. So I started out just doing photos for sports essentially, and then I started doing photos for news, and then features, and then I started having to do videos, and then I started having to help with the social media, and then I started having to do podcasts at times, but now we don't do that anymore because they laid off a sports reporter, so now I have to write sports now too. and our charity stuff. So whatever they tell me to do, I go do because that's what I have to do to get paid.
And that, my friends, is exactly why I invited Lauren in here for you to hear that perspective on things, because it is good to have a variety of perspectives. So with that, I'll just open it up to questions, and you guys know how to play the game. So Alicia, you want to give it a go?
Sure. Actually, hold on. Let me check my notes. Well, I didn't know what, and I didn't know what they were going to say, but I did kind of look through like some of your bios because Bradley scared us and said we were going to have to ask questions, and last time he caught me off guard. So I was kind of wanted to say, what is like the one assignment that you have had that will always be that assignment, the one that you will always remember, or whether it was good or bad? I guess didn't have to be a good one, but just stood out for you. And sorry, I can't remember the names, but whoever was doing like the hurricanes, just looking at the Ike photos, because my in-laws are all from Homa. So just seeing a lot of that was kind of interesting. So that kind of touched close to home. Plus Ike took our roof here in Houston. So, you know. Hey.
That was Matt. And I can tell you, because I remember getting the phone call from Matt when Katrina was on its way, and Matt had just moved to Homa, Louisiana from Kansas. So he moved from tornado country to hurricane country and didn't know what to expect. And that was an eye opener, wasn't it?
No, absolutely. And I always say outside of New Orleans, because whenever I say Homa, everybody looks at me weird. But now I should have said Homa because you would have known.
Terrebonne, she works at Terrebonne, or she did work at Terrebonne General for the longest time.
Nice. Yeah, I've frequented there a lot. No, to answer your question, it's not a very specific assignment, but definitely the hurricane coverage, starting with Katrina in 2005 for sure. I was 25 years old and just didn't know really what was going on. I just photographed whatever was in front of me and whatever happened, and didn't quite understand the severity of it until looking back at the work and going, "Whoa, that was a pretty big event," and I was right in the middle of it. But that kind of shaped how I mentioned at the start, build relationships. Because having to talk with and photograph and put your camera up to your face of in front of people who have just lost everything. Literally, they're getting off buses, soaking wet, having escaped floodwaters and flown on helicopters and got dumped off in Homa. They didn't know where they were. They didn't know where their family was. And all of a sudden, here comes 25-year-old journalist, and you can't approach them like that. And so I learned quickly to, put the camera down, kind of talk to them. One guy told me about his collection of watches. Another one told me about his cat. And just letting them get to know me as Matt. And that way, when I came back the next day or something and I picked up my camera, they're like, "Oh, that's Matt taking a picture, not some random dude that just happened to walk in." And so that's always stuck with me, and and I've done that with every hurricane since. Like you said, Ike and Gustav, and I covered Matthew a couple years ago in Florida here. Anyway, it's Florida. They would get hit all the time. Heck, I just got hit by a tornado yesterday morning. Like, I've got trees down all over my house. And so first thing I did was grab my camera and walk over to my neighbor's house who had a bigger tree down and photographed him. But I was like, "George, hey, how you doing?" Chatted with him, and then snap. And so it definitely, the hurricane coverage has shaped who I've become as a photographer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Todd, Lauren, Chris.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I got two things. One was the Freddie Gray riots here in Baltimore. Particularly that first night, which I was I was off that day. I went in, so my phone blew up with all these texts. I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" I was inside of an Airstream. I was restoring an Airstream when I was inside of it working, and my phone's blowing up. I'm like, "What's going on?" So I drove home, got my camera equipment and stuff. So that really stands out for me. And then I actually, when I was an intern in DC back in 1991 for AFP, I photographed Thurgood Marshall's retirement press conference, which at the time I even realized as a stupid 23-year-old or 22-year-old that, you know, this is historic. One, these are the most closed off people in the world if they want to be. They don't answer to anybody. They don't have to do anything they don't want to outside of the court. But he had to do this press conference and he was ornery. I didn't make any great pictures, and plus they're on film, so I'd have to go find them and scan them to have them digitally. But you know, they're buried in my storage locker. But you know, that stands out to me. So it's kind of the bookends of my career right there. And I happened to cover Katrina. I was actually in Gulfport, Mississippi. I flew down there the day after, and then got there the next morning, and was there for 5 nights and 6 days. And Gulfport is actually where my grandparents were from, and my mother grew up there. So luckily their old house survived. It got flooded, but it survived. It was very surprising because there's only three blocks from the beach. But you know, I remember that, and a lot of what Scott said. I'm sorry, Matt. You have to remember, you know, people in certain situations don't necessarily want cameras stuck in their faces. You have to really. I always, you know, what Matt said about the relationships thing was very, very good. I was very much that fly on the wall kind of guy. I did not build as many relationships. I stuck to myself, kind of stoic, you know, silent guy. And I kind of wish I had been more relational with a lot of people, you know, whether it's at other papers or other places. I was friends and I worked with people, but I didn't necessarily build the bonds as I should have. And I built relationships with subjects, but I really should have done more to build the relationships around me too. But anyway, that's my stuff.
All right. I have been all over the world, covered wars, devastation, hurricanes, Hurricane Sandy, the earthquake in Haiti, Iraq. But the thing that always affects me to this day is probably my coverage of 9/11 and being there. I lost a lot of friends that day. I saw a lot of my friends go into that building and never come out. I came close to being killed that day. You never expect as a photographer to be rescuing firefighters. I mean, that's crazy. But that day made me realize just how important the work I was doing was to the public, to the world in general, which gives me strength every day to face down these people who come at me and say, "Oh, you're fake news. You're fake news. You make it up." And they just recently we had a protest rally where there was Orthodox Jewish people protesting, and they came at me and started calling me fake news. And I said to them, "I'm not fake, I'm flake." And before you know it, I had them chanting Frosted Flakes. And it was just kind of humorous. But to me, it's something very personal to when they call me fake news, because I not only write, but I take the picture. So I always tell them my picture proves my writing. And so it goes hand in hand. And what the 9/11 taught me that day was that I lived because I had something more important that needed to get done in the world. And that's it. And it's not my decision.
Tough to follow, Todd. Scott?
That was powerful stuff, Todd. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, for me, I think my best assignment ever was the day I was sent to Harlow and Gene Cagwin's farm in 1994, just for a quick 2-hour assignment to document them for a bigger story on people raising animals in the part of Homer Township where they lived. And just organically, you know, the project it wasn't a project at the time, it was just a 2-hour visit. And as I was walking out, I said, "Hey, can I come back and visit you?" And they were like, "Great." And so it just kind of, you know, they turned into my friends first, and then I started doing stories on them. and followed them for 8 years. And then that turned into meeting a family in the subdivision that was on their farmland. And then they became my friends and I followed them for 5+ years. And so it's just, for me, it's like you never know what an assignment's going to give you. And you have to come in with an open mind and be flexible to kind of follow it where it takes you, and not have a predetermined notion of what it is. And I still will have assignments now where I'll just get in and out as quick as I can, and so sometimes I don't follow my own advice. But it is, for me, a good lesson that, just to kind of be ready and kind of look at all the possibilities and not kind of, predetermine and pre-visualize your coverage before you start.
That's actually great advice for high school students, because so many times they just run in and run out and they don't think about developing the images. Lauren, and then we'll go. Let's see, Danielle. Then you can ask the next question after Lauren.
I don't really have a best or worst. I kind of just like the ones where I actually get to work with another person to do it. So like we have a reporter named Trish. I like going out with her. She's pretty fun because I just like what questions she comes up with. Like I'll go with her down to Dallas to go work on a project which was kind of awkward for me. We had to do one on priests that have been convicted for molestation. But we had to go talk to their neighbors. So we were just going around knocking on people's doors to see if they would answer the door, and so she could interview them. And so I could take a picture of them for this project that we weren't actually working on. We were doing it for another paper. But then there was another one we had to go back down and talk to police officers to talk about how, I guess you could say, the police officer side or something like that. But so those that could be kind of awkward for me anyway, because I can be a bit shy. But it's just kind of nice to be able to go down and do those things with say another reporter or another photographer, just to go and see how they talk to people and see how they work on their story, since I'm having to start writing myself. So that's just what I like. I just like being able to work with others to see how they would approach a story.
Awesome. Danielle, is that a Schnauzer?
It's a mutt. It's my mom's dog. She's having a squamous cell removed from her finger tomorrow, and so she doesn't want him at her house, and so he's feeling very clingy. Instead of having him like yowl at me, I just decided to pick him up.
Well, what's your question? And not have to answer every question if we don't want to. We can bounce around. So
I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. So I've been teaching yearbook. I think this is my 8th book. And we always do units on photography, photo composition and all the the top hits of photojournalism. And no matter how many ways I teach it and how many tricks I give them and how many tips I give them, every year I have a large portion of my staff come back with just not good pictures. So I know they can identify those photo composition rules, but they can't figure out how to create them. And so I'm wondering, and I've asked this so many times, is there a tip? Is there a trick? Or is that just something that is innate that you have to learn as you play with your camera and explore photography?
Yeah, for me, like the quickest ways I try to help starting photographers is to get out of the habit of photographing standing up from like 5 feet away. Like I always tend to photograph from like a kneeling or a sitting position if I can. And especially if I'm photographing someone who might be a little uncomfortable, if you tend to be below them, they are more comfortable instead of you kind of hovering over the top of them or getting right in their face. So I definitely, try to encourage the photographers to one, find a non-standing position to photograph from, maybe finding a higher elevation, and also just fill your frame with what you want, I see a lot of things nowadays with young photographers, saying, here's the regular photo and here's the edits. And so they basically take a really poorly exposed photo and they work for 20 hours to make it look like an exposed normally photo. And, so just, try to get them to practice and to shoot manually and photograph their family, photograph people they have access to, study other people's photographs, study their own photographs. I know some of them are just doing it probably for credit or something, so they don't want to put that much time into it. But, I think, just looking at other people's photographs, at least for me starting out, there used to be, when I was starting out, an annual book of the best pictures of the year that would get mailed to my house because I entered the contest and lost. But, but getting that book of what I thought were, which were the best photos of that year, for me was just eye-opening. It was like, oh, this is what great photojournalism is. Because when I started out in 1986, you could see my photos two ways. You could subscribe to the tiny paper I worked at, or I could bring the photos to you, and now with the internet, one can, see photography from around the world at any time, any moment. You can search it out. So there's so much great photography out there. So, I would say just study other people's photography, but also, just think about what you're doing and try to fill the frame and, not rely on cropping or photoshopping. It's hard nowadays because for me, editing means editing the best photos out of a bunch, but for people younger now, editing means Photoshop. And so sometimes it's hard with the vernacular, but yeah, it's just like practice your craft and learn your camera and forget about the technical aspects. I think I just mashed about 20 tips all into one. So I hope some of that made sense.
That was good, Scott. But you won a lot of those contests. Don't be so shy.
Eventually I did, but not early in my career.
Okay, there we go.
I remember Scott's name coming across my desk quite a few times.
But I'm going to say, becoming a videographer, trying to teach 20-plus-year veteran photojournalists how to do video when I was at the Sun, and now trying to teach 18 to 22-year-olds how to do video, who you would think would be just natural at it, and they're not. That the digital generation is kind of a misnomer, I think. I really, even with the photography aspect that I teach some photography classes, I TA some video classes. I talk a lot about the tight, medium, wide, extra tight, extra wide, and work on the dynamics of the image and how those differentiate, and thinking in sequences, and which goes along with shooting picture essays or multiple photos from the same assignment. And then one of the things I really work with them is on the dynamics of the image is tight, getting close, getting tight. And I go through an assignment where I have them partner up and they put their cameras on the minimum focus that it can and photograph each other and really look at the images. And then I have them stand six, like that distance Scott said, that 5 to 6, which is sort of the normal distance. People just gravitate to that 5 to 6 foot distance. And then I have them shoot from across the room. And then I have them use their zooms, and I have them do the same thing. If they have zooms or if they have telephotos, and start with the minimum focus as close as they can get, and really show them, have them doing it and show them that this is how you make an image dynamic. There's the rule of thirds, which is like the golden rule of things. There's the golden rule of rectangles, golden rule of rule thirds. But, really is teaching them how to figure out those distances, how to break that comfort zone, the vantage points. Then I start teaching vantage points after I go from those aspects. And I think that you really have to show them. They have to do it. I've lectured, I've tried all sorts of different ways to get students to figure out how to make their images dynamic and their video dynamic, particularly the B-roll, because the B-roll is so important to have so many different types of shots. So that's the way I approach it in trying to get that dynamism within the image. And, and then of course, 5% to 10% are going to get it, 80% are going to be confused, and 10% are just not going to care. So, there's not much you can do about that, but I do my damnedest and I'm still trying to figure it out.
Well, I'll jump in. I'm actually also teaching a photojournalism course at Wichita State this semester, and just had my last class on yesterday. But one of the first things I did was give them a list of names of photographers, and Scott was actually one of them. And I was like, look at these photographers, find one of these photographers that you like go look at their website, go like, oh, I like how their pictures look compared to this person's pictures or whatever. And one of the students just randomly chose a female because she's like, well, I wanted to write a paper on a female photographer. So she just kind of just threw a dart and picked the first female. And when she started looking at her work, she was like, oh, I know this person. I've seen this work. And it was Dorothea Lange, like who doesn't know her work after a while. But she didn't realize that was Dorothea's picture, but it just clicked for her. And she's like, oh, I've seen this. And so she got excited because she picked the person, she looked who they were, she recognized them, and then was really excited about that photographer. And so, and actually I got that from Bradley. He did that for me when I was in college. Like, just go find a photographer you like and follow their work. And I'm looking over here I'm in my office, and I've got just stacks and stacks of books. And I'm like, oh, that was that era where I followed, so-and-so. That was the 6 months that I read this guy's book. And so, yeah, I just find a photographer that you like, that you're interested in. If you're interested in it, you're going to read about it. Like just like any book, if you're not interested in the story, you'll put the book down. But if you're interested in their work, you're going to want to copy it. And that's what kept me getting excited and that's why I have an entire bookshelf of books that I can't get rid of.
You'll get rid of them. All right.
Next time I move, I'm getting rid of them. That's for sure. Let's
tackle the next question from Stephen.
Okay. I found that when I was in the professional and even hardcore collegiate world, that when I would do stories, I was more of a writer than a photographer, that I would kind of get into a rhythm. Like when I would do any story, I kind of had this pattern I followed subconsciously. So I'm curious for y'all, like when you go to a generic event, you've been assigned to do anything, when your feet hit the ground, what's your process? Like, what's your first thing that goes to your mind? I'm doing this first, and then I need to do that. So like, kind of what's your process that goes through?
I think I'll take that one first. Firstly, do your homework before you get to that assignment. Find out what's going on, what it is, who are the main people that you need to know that are speaking or are featured or running things, and get to know who's doing what there. And when we talk about what's a generic assignment, I really can't figure that out myself, what a generic assignment ever is. Yeah, you can go to a generic press conference, but you can always find something creative to do with that assignment, a different angle, or and what I find about my students that I've been with is that they're shy. A lot of them are shy. They're afraid to approach people. They're afraid to get close. They're afraid to make eye contact. You just can't be. You can't be the fly on the wall anymore. I've never felt that being a fly on the wall was a good idea. You need to make that connection, but also to find those moments when people are not really ready for you, that unguarded moment. And you can find that at the most generic assignments. And I look for them. I look for those moments when, say, the mayor is speaking. I look for the time when he's not speaking, when he's off to the side, when he's talking to somebody or talking on the phone or just doing something that isn't normal for him, standing at a podium. You're looking for something different. Sometimes you just got to make the money shot. Sure, the guy standing at the podium, you make the money shot, but you've always thinking of what will be different to make this a unique assignment, the most generic ones. And I always tell people and my students that every assignment is a potential Pulitzer, and you got to think of it that way.
Any of the rest of the crowd?
I'll just say that, I usually evaluate the scene. I just get there and you look around, you see what's happening. And then I usually find someone that knows what's going to be happening and ask them what is going to be happening so that I can be prepared if anything does happen that I wasn't expecting. You don't know, or I find if they have a, itinerary or something to get that. And so I know what to expect. So I know, like, okay, if the person I'm waiting for to do something is not coming on for an hour, I got an hour to shoot feature pictures and sort of get used to the scene and get people used to me, and that kind of thing. Which, by the way, I say fly on the wall, and Todd is very accurate in his description that you shouldn't be a fly. We try to get people to forget us, but we're really elephants. I mean, you're walking around like I am, a 6'1", 200 plus pound guy, and with 3 cameras on and some other gear. I stand out in a crowd. Scott always, whenever I watch Scott work, he always seemed to disappear. But because we worked together at 2 different papers in the same chain in Chicago. But I think it's just to evaluate and figure out what's going to happen. Don't just be surprised. Be prepared, and that's part of the homework thing as well that Todd was talking about.
I have a friend who's freelancing for the New York Times now in DC, and his assignment is to cover the White House. And he was writing something for me a while back, and he said the New York Times isn't paying me to get the same shot that everybody else is going to get. So he'll get the bank shot, but because he has to. But then he'll shoot other stuff like you guys are talking about. I agree, that's really important. Kevin and Laura, you get the next question after Kevin.
All right. So like Lauren, I've been in this business for about 5 years. And when I say this business, as a broadcast journalist, and in those 5 years, I've lived in 3 different states already. So obviously this business is ever evolving. The landscape is changing dramatically. And part of the reason why I want to get into education is just because I don't know the security or stability of it in the future. But I guess my question to, it could be to anyone, Chris, Todd, I'll say Todd specifically, because you've been in this business longer than I've been alive, which is a blessing, not implying that's your old or anything. But, my question is, I am heavily inspired through your longevity in this career, your endurance. And my thing is, I've been in it for 5 years, and some days it's hard just to keep my sanity on the daily grind of being in journalism. So, my question to you is, how did you keep your sanity for that long? Because you're about to retire. Also, if Todd, I don't know how old you are right now, but if I'll just say 48, if 48-year-old Todd can tell 21-year-old Todd something, what would you tell your younger self getting into this business?
Wow. Well, look, you got to love it. You got to absolutely love what you're doing to be in this business. Otherwise, why are you here? You got to love the things that you're doing, the people that are around you. You have to appreciate the variety of people that you meet, and see the whole complexion of the world around you. And once you start, if you have that appreciation of the variety of life, you're gonna love it. I mean, I go from a homicide to a flower show to a fire to doing a portrait job. I will go, and I like the variety. I like doing that. I'm big on crime. I'm very big on crime, but I couldn't live with it if it was all negative work. I couldn't do that. I can't live in a negative world. I have to have balance. A lot of people would say that they have to have balance in their life. I have to have it in the work that I do. Otherwise, I would get depressed about it. I would be upset about it. It would be very hard to get up in the morning. Every morning, I do stories about shootings every single morning. But that's not what I do all day. I will go out there and shoot a lot of different things. I'll shoot the weather. I will shoot almost anything, any subject. It doesn't matter. And I always tell people you should have variety in your work so that you don't get tired of it. And I'm not tired of it. And I go much further out than a lot of people. I do crazy things. I do a lot of crazy things. I drive like a maniac. I'm the real Nightcrawler. That's what I do. I am the Jake Gyllenhaal. I drive like that, except I drive worse. And that's going to be my book. My book is Confessions of a Psycho News Guy. That's what it's going to be, and people should expect that from me. If you enjoy it, if you love it, you have to love it, or what are you doing here?
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I like the question of what would you tell your younger self? And I was thinking, like, well, what would I say? And the one thing I really, really miss about newspapers is what he just talked about, is the variety. Like, you're going from a high school football game to a board meeting to a fire to a murder to a hurricane, you know, and that's exciting. That's really, really fun. Like, you have no idea what you're going to do from one day to another. And I really miss that. And it can get stagnant sometimes if I'm not, like, having grown up like that, not getting to do that now. I get kind of stale. So what I would tell myself, you know, 20-year-old Matt, I'd be like, appreciate the highs of journalism, the exciting times, the happy times, the fun things you get to do, even the not fun things. Your adrenaline can get going, depending on what it is. And I kind of let those come and go, thinking that, because I remember I thought I was going to be a newspaper photographer my entire career. I'm like, I'm just going to keep being a newspaper guy. And so I thought that those moments and those highs and those fun times would last my entire career. And then when I left newspapers, I'm like, oh, a math class isn't nearly as fun as, you know, a pile up on the interstate, which that shouldn't be fun, but you get the idea. So yeah, to really appreciate the energy and the fun and the exciting parts of journalism.
Anybody else want to talk on that one? All right. Well, who gets to that? Who was it?
Thank you.
Hi, I think I was next.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, my question is specifically for Lauren, because I somewhat recently listened to a podcast with, was it Lindsay Addario, who's like a Pulitzer-winning female photojournalist, which I thought was really, really cool. And I'm not a photo person. I'm really trying to be, but my school has a really good photo program, and we've had some really good female photographers, some who've become professional, but they're literally photographing, like, you know, professional dance, or they're wedding photographers, or we have one fashion photographer who's professional and really good, and a former student is, who cares anyway, but they're all doing kind of they're kind of staying out of photojournalism in my little bubble, right? So Lauren, I'm curious about some of your experiences as a female photojournalist, because I think that's just so cool.
I guess I don't really know what to say, because it is kind of just, I guess, the same. I just go out, I take a photo. I guess, although I guess now that you mention it, I guess I do see a lot of guys a lot, since I do a lot of sports since I work at night, and that's basically all that happens at night is sports, or a city council meeting, or like a school board meeting, or events. I actually think it's pretty fun, because before COVID anyway, I used to go to, basically, I got paid to have fun, so I'd go to festivals a lot, or like we used to have this beer fest. I'd get to go to that. People would give me beer. I didn't drink anything, I promise. Or like a wine festival, or like, I think it would be be cool to do possibly fashion photography. When I was at art school, I was friends with a lot of the people that did photography, and that's a pretty diverse group of people, but I've always liked the idea of constantly changing my assignment to something else instead of just doing just one thing all the time, although it technically is one thing all the time, just different people that rotate in that take that spot. But I don't know, I guess it's the same. I guess it's more of whatever it is that you're interested in, really, as opposed to then just being like there's more guys all over the place. Or maybe I just see guys because it's sports all the time. Like even when I went to say even like professional games or college games, I guess there's a lot of guys, but there was a lot of work running up and down the sideline until I was basically like, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm just gonna stay in one spot and wait for them to come to me. But I don't know. I don't know. I guess you could ask the guys, is that normal? Is that a normal just photojournalist job in the evening?
No, I definitely think, especially in the sports world, they make it very difficult for women to break in, because even at my newspaper, where I'm the only white male and we have a staff that has more women than men, I still am like one of two go-to sports photographers, and the other one is also a male, and but if you go to any like high-ranking photojournalism school, the classrooms are 80% women, maybe even 90% women. It's amazing. It's like the younger generation of people studying photojournalism is vastly female, and that's exciting. Like I am, I came, I started up with mostly white male staffs in the Chicago Tribune. When I got there, there was, I think, 2 women on a 40-person staff, and and that just does not represent your community. And that's the great thing I love about the San Francisco Chronicle, is that our newsroom, even outside of photo, it represents the community. We have, everything you can find in the community, you can find on our photo staff, and that is rare and exciting. And so, but yeah, I do think that, there's still, speaking from the white male perspective, I still think that, women nowadays are expected to do a lot more than men. Men are still allowed to just have their career and kind of skate by, where women have other expectations of them. And, it's hopefully that is changing. But, I do think if you did go to Western Kentucky or Ohio or, any of those, traditional photojournalism schools, you'll notice it's vastly, a lot more women than men right now. So I think that's a good sign for the future.
Well, and I guess I've been spoiled over here. And I was gonna say, because the other 2 guys that take photos for us are both white males, but the sports reporters hate them taking photos for sports because they aren't. Apparently, I'm better at taking sports photos than they are, so they always complain if I can't go to the main game to take the photos. So I guess that's why I've never thought about it. I thought it was just they picked who was the best at sports photos.
Well, I feel good if they wanted my photos with their work, but I will say there are a lot more women in journalism, there are a lot more women photographers. Pretty much more than 50% of the students, it might be around 60% are female here at UT in the undergraduate program. It's probably higher than that. Now that I think about it, because most of my classes, it's about 60, 70%,
That's a nationwide change in the last decade.
Yeah. And so as far as the female photography stuff, I recommend, if you want some people, I can't remember, oh my God, was it Laura that asked that question? I'm sorry. I can't, yeah. If you want to, you can get my email from Bradley, and I can get you some names of some people if you'd like to talk to. I'll be glad to do that, make introductions. That's one of the things I'm really trying to do, is really make connections between people in the business that I know with people that want to know more, whether they're students with other people or advisors or whatever.
Yeah, there's an organization, Women Photograph, run by Daniela Zalkman, and it's basically kind of just what's the word I'm looking? I'm losing it, but it's just kind of all the women photographers almost in the world, and it's a good, database of women. And also they do mentoring and workshops when you can still do workshops nowadays. But that Women Photograph is a really good kind of place to start to find kind of the every top female photographer out there.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot more for women photographers in the business now than there were when I started out in the 80s. And now I work alongside them sometimes on crime scenes, and yeah, they'll go head to head with me, and they're perfectly capable, and they're really good at what they do, and we have real good mutual respect out there. I think some of the editors find that some of the women photographers have a little more empathy with their subjects, and I think that plays in a little bit. I'm not sure it goes across the board, but that seems to be that seems to be it going through. But yeah, there's a lot more women photographers out there now. But they're having a hard time, just like a lot of the photographers now, especially in New York City. We had a lot of new people come into the business as a result of COVID. A lot of them were portrait shooters. They were shooting entertainment. They were shooting corporate, and they all started flowing in. A lot of different photographers came into the business during COVID because all their work dried up. So we got a lot of new women photographers, and some of them are really good. I gotta say, I did work with Lindsay Dario, who was an amazing person, amazing photographer. I remember taking her out years and years ago when she first started. I took her out in the field to show her how I do my job. The Daily News at that time would just not give her the real good assignments. They would give her the flower shows and the things like that, and she got bored of it real quick. And says, "Why am I not getting the crime scenes? Why am I not getting the harder assignments, the more dangerous assignments?" And boy, oh boy, she wanted the danger. Anyone that knows her work knows what I'm talking about.
All right, Jennifer, you want the next question? Maybe the last question, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, I just had a question. What would you say to a student or a colleague who was refusing an assignment? Like just was like, I'm not going to take it, or I can't take it, or whatever. What would you say?
Who wants to go with that one? I would personally tell them, okay, but don't do it too often. I mean, I would ask them why. I mean, look, have I turned down assignments? Sure, I've turned down assignments. Well, I've earned the right to do that. But why? Why are you turning it down? Is there a reason why? Or maybe you've been getting the same assignment all the time. I mean, that's wrong. That's wrong for an editor to do that. And like myself, I appreciate variety, and I know other people do, and certainly anyone that turns out an assignment because they've been getting the same assignment all the time, say, hey, they have a right to turn it down.
Matt, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think so. That's a tough question. Obviously, the circumstance of why would be the first question I'd ask. But then I'd also probably explain, like, okay, if you want to turn down assignments from your boss or editor, just know that, like, when the state championship football game comes up, I'm not going to send you because you kept turning down. I'm going to send the ones that wanted to work. The photographers that wanted to shoot all those boring assignments throughout the year, I'm going to reward them with the fun assignment at the end of the year or at the end of the week or whatever it might be. And so at least like that's the way I did it when I was in college, and I was photo editor at the Collegian and RP. You know, the photographers that worked and put in the time, even at those lame, I can't think of, like the quilting club assignments, I let them go to the football games on Saturdays because they put in that extra effort. So if someone's turning down assignments, and if it's because of, well, it's just boring, well, okay, well, cool, I'm not going to give you the fun ones then. Everybody wants to go to those cool things, but not put in the practice hours of the boring stuff, if you will.
There's a danger in turning down assignments as a freelancer too, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a whole other dynamic of what to turn down and what not. But yeah, absolutely. If you keep turning them down, they're not going to come back and ask you for them.
I never knew we were allowed to turn them down.
Speaking
Gone to
more from
everything.
an educator's point of view, the students are saying, like Matt, you know, I don't want to take the chess club photos. I don't want to, you know, I want to go to the away football game, or I want to, you know, do this or do that. So, you know,
Well,
getting, yeah.
I would think that, you know, 30 years ago, I'd told them, well, you're not doing anything then. But now, you know, you find out why and what their reasoning is. But, you know, I'm just going to probably back up Todd and Matt on this, that a lot of it comes down to, you have to prove yourself. There is a meritocracy to photojournalism work, to visual work, that you have to prove, because writing you can fix. Writing will most often can be fixed. It can be altered. A photograph cannot. So you've got to be able to go there and make an image and present it in a way that is professional and looks good and is attractive to the audience and draws viewers. And if you can't do that, you can't go out on the good stuff. So you have to prove yourself on those little things. And like Matt and I, you know, I was a Collegian and RP editor before photo editor before he was. For the newer people coming in, they didn't get the passes to the game. They'd have to earn them, right? So they, you know, particularly the freshmen and sophomores, the wannabes would have to really work to earn that pass. And then to keep that pass, they'd have to keep doing good work or go to somebody else. And every week at the meeting, we go, okay, this week Christopher's going, and this week Mark's going, you know, and or something, or Brad, Sarah's going, Sarah Bradshaw, she was one of the photographers. And so and you have to tell them, I think, and explain that, okay, I understand that you think it's boring, but most of what we do in life, most of what we are trying to do is, particularly as photographers, is make things interesting for people who have not seen them before or don't understand it. And when you can do that, then you get to do the good stuff, and your other stuff will be better. And I think a key implement in that is that this is going to help you in the long run, whether you're working at the newspaper or you're working for Google and, you know, as a developer, or you're a coder at Twitter, or if you're just working for the bank down the street. This is all going to help you in becoming someone who can really be depended upon and called upon and relied upon. And I think that's where it goes. And it has, I mean, I'm not as hard on these things as I used to be. Oh, I would not have, you know, if I was an RP editor and someone said they don't want to do something, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. But, you know, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt hard. And and I don't know about Matt's years, but my years, we were really hard on each other. Much harder than anything that I've seen goes on nowadays. So, you know, and I'm not saying that was good. It probably wasn't. And that's probably why I was a hard ass for the first 20 years of my career. But I really think that they just need to understand what you're looking for and understand what they want, and then making it work to your advantage by explaining why this is going to benefit them in the end to go shoot the chess club. I'd love to go shoot the chess club right now. I'm writing a paper on, what am I writing on? I can't remember what I'm writing on, but I'm writing a paper on something I really don't care about right now. So it's like, I'd love to go shoot the chess club.
And I'll just add to that I used to stress to my photographers as an editor when I was hiring, I would prefer the person that can come back with a usable picture 100% of the time, rather than the person that can win a Pulitzer Prize and come back with a Pulitzer Prize picture 1% of the time. So you have to be able to prove to me that you can do 100% of the time, I've got to have something usable. And Chris, I too am dealing with those issues. I almost kicked a student out of school today for plagiarism. These are the fun times. Just copied and pasted an entire paper and turned it in. Thought it was okay. Okay, so we got time for maybe one more, maybe two more questions. Jacob? Oh, and I'm gonna, by the way, when we get done with Jacob's question, I'm gonna ask everybody, all the guests that are here to have some closing thoughts. So be thinking about what your closing thoughts are.
Hey, so my question is, you know, obviously I'm a teacher and I have not worked in the journalism industry. So I would ask, what are some insights that you think that you guys could provide for me to pass along to my students of things that I might overlook or that I might not realize, that you think that they need to know? And then I would also ask, just on a personal note, if someone like me who, you know, hasn't worked in the industry but is, you know, works in that content area and, you know, is familiar enough with the stuff, who wanted to start, you know, doing some work, who wanted to take some photos and, you know, contribute to their local paper, whatever, and who wanted to kind of break into the industry in some way, what advice you would give for that?
Scott?
Okay, I'll go. So I just think for, you know, kind of teaching journalism to young people, I think, you know, and I get caught in this a lot where I consider my photography my art, you know, like this is my art, and you know, and somehow it's not a job. And, you know, and I think it's important to stress that you have to take it seriously. It can't be, you know, just when you're in the mood for it, or, you know, and there's more to it than just making photographs. Like when I'm on the job right now, you know, with the internet, like I have to be shooting photos and transmitting photos back to the newspaper while an event is going on, and then continuing to shoot and then still sending photos back. And, you know, just on election night, you know, I'm sitting on a curb in San Francisco with my laptop, you know, sending back photos while Joe Biden is still speaking. And, you know, and there's all this deadline pressure and you know, and then the writing angle, which we kind of talked about earlier, where you have to have the skill of being able to write a you know, a very strong, at least 2-sentence caption that it, you know, is the who, what, where, and why, but also give it some context. And, you know, there's much more to it than just photography. But, you know, the photography part is what it all revolves upon. So you have to really be serious about your craft and study it and work hard. And as for, you know, trying to get work as a photographer, you know, I think it's just kind of reaching out to people and creating relationships, and you know, asking an editor if they have time for a 30-minute Zoom, or back in the day, take him out for coffee, or you know, but you have to somehow go out and create the type of work that they're looking for. And say you want to do sports photography, you know, you're going to have to go to your nephew's baseball game and shoot some photos, and, you know, and kind of create some sort of portfolio of images, that can show people. It's a catch-22. You know, you have to show them you can do it before they allow you to do it. And, you know, and so it depends what you're interested in. Back in the day when I started out, it was a stepladder approach. You got hired at a small paper, and then you got to a bigger paper and big paper. And now a lot of the photographers, you know, like, for example, we're going to be hiring a photographer at the San Francisco Chronicle. I guarantee you it is going to be someone who lives in San Francisco, who is young and probably used to be one of our interns. You know, we're not going to hire a 25, 30-year-old, you know, veteran of the business. We're going to hire a young photographer, and that is rare. You know, when I started out, the Tribune wouldn't look at me until I was 10 years into my career. And so nowadays it's totally different. You know, I think the young photographers can make a big splash by just dropping a project on people. And it could be a project of their brother or someone. It could be, you know, just something, you know, just something that shows that they have a good eye and they know how to compose a photograph. And, but you have to somehow come up with at least, you know, a bare bones portfolio of images that is fitted to the client or the publication that you want to work for. But, you know, reach out to people. But, you know, once again, that, you know, human connection with someone is what's going to get you work. And, you know, it's a lot harder to say no to a face than it is to a name.
And I'll add to what Scott said. I think in the climate that we're at, especially the small to mid-sized newspapers, if you just walk in the door and say, hey, I noticed you didn't have a photographer at the football game, and I happen to be there shooting some pictures. Would you like to use some of my pictures? That's a foot in the door. That's a foot in the door. Anybody else want to chime in on that? That's how I got my foot in the door. And for the record, I completely agree with Scott about the following. I had a friend that used to work at the Washington Post, and he would follow photographers for 20 or 25 years before he would give them a job offer. And he would almost literally, that's how it would work. He would follow them through their careers, run into them at workshops, and then eventually he would just say, we've got an opening, you interested? And you never know. I don't think it works that way anymore. Joe Elbert, for those of you that remember Joe.
I would say that to especially people starting out, keep pitching, always come up with ideas, always provide original content. Don't wait for them to give you work. Always come and bring work. And the people that I bring in that I use as freelancers at AM New York, I depend on them to come up with their own ideas. Yes, I'll give them assignments, sure, but I want them to come up with their own things. If you're not coming up with your own things, then what do I need you for? I can get. There's plenty of photographers out there. The business has become commoditized, and there's a lot of content out there, and there's a lot of people shooting pictures now, and a lot of the publications now are grabbing freebies. They're grabbing. They have reporters shooting pictures on cell phones, and they're looking to cut their costs, and so they don't want to hire photographers anymore. A lot of publications you'll find have very little staff, and they depend upon their freelancers for work. And the freelancers better damn well be coming up with something, otherwise they're not going to get work. And that's the case, and certainly the business is changing in that direction, where they want to hire the younger guys. They don't want to hire me, even though I have more history. I know the subjects better than most people. They're going to hire me? No, they want to hire the younger kid who they can mold in the way they want to mold them, number one, but number two, they can pay them less.
All right, Elizabeth, I think has a question, and then we'll go around robin and then get your closing thoughts.
So mine was just kind of going back to kind of what we were talking about at the very beginning, and how y'all were saying like it's good to just have like multiple different types of skills when it comes to like photography and writing and stuff. I have a kid actually right now. He was just asking me this like right before I think Thanksgiving break. He knows he wants to go into journalism. He's taken like all the intro classes. He's in yearbook and newspaper right now. And he's thinking about going to UNT, the University of North Texas. But they have a print side of things, and then they have a photojournalism side of things, and he is torn between the two. So like, what advice would you give him in regard to like making that decision?
Chris?
All right, you caught me. I'd reply to a student. Could you just repeat the last part of that?
He's trying to decide if he should, because he wants to go into journalism. He really loves photography, but he's also like picking up on the writing side of things.
Okay.
So he doesn't know like which way to go. Okay,
that was the part I missed. I heard everything, but he's deciding between the two. Do both. That's what you got to do. And if he's going to go to journalism school, most of the programs are going to be sort of a slice program. They're going to learn bits and pieces of all these things, and then at some point they're going to have to decide. If he's serious about journalism and photography, the photography aspect of it, but is not sure about it, make sure he finds a place where is photocentric, or at least photo positive. Because a lot of places either don't have anybody teaching photography, or if they do, it's, you know, maybe it's just one class and maybe it's not that good, or they just rely on, you know, if you're thinking about both, you got to go somewhere like Missouri, Western Kentucky, Florida, Oregon, you know, they're Maryland is a great place to really get a foundation and all these things. And then you have to build on it yourself with the photojournalism. Like Matt and I went to a school where there was no photo program, but the photographers and the advisors all worked together. The advisors were like sort of the support, but we really taught each other and all that stuff. It was the hard way to do it looking back on it. I wish I'd kind of maybe focused more on maybe Missouri or Western Kentucky or somewhere else. I don't regret it, but I should have thought about it. I'm not saying I should have done it, Bradley. I'm just saying I should have thought about it instead of just missing it, because I probably would have made myself a little more rounded and better person in my 4 years at K-State if I had thought about that. But I think they have to kind of, you know, they got to learn, you know, they got to learn video. They got to learn podcasting, or at least recording audio, and they have to learn photography, and they have to learn writing. You know, do they have to have experts at all four? No, they'll at some point need to become an expert at one of them or two of them if they can. But you know, the whole idea of the multitasking, do everything journalist is not as gung-ho as it was, because they found out, and I've done research on this, that it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and it's not an efficient savings of money.
Everything that we all said was true ended up.
Yeah, it just lessens the product. And so I think that encourage them to look into doing both for now and sort of picking. But they have to photography, you have to do it every day. And even if they're interested in writing, they have to do it every day. I haven't said this before, and I think everybody will back me up. You got to carry your camera with you. You got to get used to using it. It's got to become second nature, and you got to make photographs every day.
So Chris, what would you say if I challenged you and I said, I don't think it was your degree that got you a career, it was your work on Student Pub. And so I don't really care where you went to school, it's what you did on Student Pub or that really got you the jobs. For example, UTA has a very weak journalism program and has an amazing Student Pub program. And I push photographers there all the time because it's the top Photo J program in the state right now for student.
Which school did you say?
UTA, Arlington.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, by far.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it too, is that you got to go where it's working, right? Like UT Arlington. Yeah. Right now, UT Austin, we're trying to figure out what the hell we're doing with our photo stuff. You know, they want to do some things, but they're trying to figure it out. So yeah, I mean, you want to go where you can do the work, but you also don't want to go where you kind of put yourself in a box and maybe you wouldn't get ahead, say, if you had gone to Missouri or something like that. It's just weighing that out. Like I said, I don't regret going to K-State. I just wish I had thought it out a little broader about what I'm missing out on by not going to Missouri. I got a lot of advantages from shooting from the first day of my freshman year, but I missed out on a lot on connections and maybe a little more of a base of basic photojournalism than we got at K-State. And it's weighing all these things. But if the person is seriously interested in photography, they've got to be carrying the camera around with them everywhere, and they have to be making photographs every day. They have to be thinking photography, and that's the way you get good at it. And you have to just bury yourself in it. I mean, all my books are in storage, but I have photo books like crazy. And my guide were the Royal Purple yearbooks from like 83 to 86. 82 to 86 were like the ones that from K-State were like, that was my Bible. That's what I studied, you know. And then I discovered the other things and the other people, you know, the people I worked with. But I think just, you got to push them that way.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, the good thing about our profession is that all you have to do is be able to do it, you know, like, you know, you can't become a doctor without going to medical school, but you can become the world's top photojournalist or top writer without going to school. I'm not saying that not going to school is a benefit, but I'm just saying is that one of the things is that a lot of people have it. A lot of my favorite photographers were history majors or chemistry majors, or, not that, or like just my personal background is I was a liberal arts college. We had no photo classes. I was a business art double major, and I did watercolors, it just kind of, I fell into photojournalism. So, I would not get too caught up on knowing what the path is right now. Like, oh gosh, if I take this path, I'm going to make it. If I take that path, I'm not going to make it. Not true. There's 1,000 different ways for that young man or young woman to be successful. And don't stress too much about, these choices right now. Just make a choice and then work your ass off, and everything will turn out, the way it's going to turn out. And I wouldn't, think that there's only one path to success.
All right.
Yeah. Thinking about it. It's just thinking about it. Just don't make the decisions I made.
Think about it is great. Think about it is great advice. People don't do that enough. All right, so let's do a little quick round robin and some closing thoughts. And Todd, how about we start with you?
Sure. I always tell photographers, I say, enter contests. Even to this day, I enter contests every single year. It makes you a better photographer. You're actually getting critiqued often by the best in the business, by your fellow colleagues, and it makes you think about what you've been doing, and it brings you down to earth, which is important, to realize that, well, not every picture you're taking is the greatest in the freaking world. I mean, come on. I also tell people, especially starting out in the business, I right out of college, I hit the ground running, went to a weekly newspaper. Why? Because I hadn't decided if I wanted to be a writer or if I wanted to be a photographer. My strength, I had a pretty good strength in photography, but my training was journalism. I was trained as a writer. So I decided to try to do them both and see which of the skills comes out stronger. And in the end, the photography came out stronger. But I always tell people, don't abandon the other things that you do well. Just because you do photography better, keep those skills, keep them sharp, and maybe you'll be like an exception to the rule. I mean, yes, it's true. People trying to do all of it don't do it well most of the time. I have been one of the exceptions in that case. I've been able to do it well in both ends, but not always. Not always. I've gone to jobs and shot great pictures, and the guy who's shooting just the photos will have better pictures than me. Even though I'm a better photographer, he spent more time taking the pictures, and in the end, came out with better pictures sometimes, and that happens. But again, you try, you maintain all your skills, but something is going to come out that is the best of what you do, and then you should lean in that direction.
Awesome. Lauren.
Sort of doing some general closing thoughts. Well, listening to these guys feels like I was in class again. I haven't been in class in a while. But what Todd said was true. I think the biggest thing that helped me as a new photographer was critiques. I mean, the first thing we learned when I was in art school at SCAD was a critique is something that helps you, not something that hurts you. And so when I had to deal with Bradley looking at my photos all the time and telling me that that wasn't a good one, it really didn't hurt my feelings. And I didn't at all want to hit him in the face afterwards. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is having someone else look at my photos with me as we go through them. And then I can be like, oh, this is what was good about this one. Or they'll be like, well, why did you do that? And then it almost forces me to have to think about it like, well, I only took the picture because we were standing there, as opposed to, well, does the picture actually do anything, or does it tell anything? So I guess that would be my thing if I was trying to help a young beginning photographer, would just be sit with them and ask them questions about what they just did, because it's really fresh at that moment.
I think that's great advice. Chris?
You know, it's immerse yourself in photography. Whether it's yourself as an advisor or your students, look at good photography. Find good photography. Books, magazines, you know, National Geographic, The Atlantic, The New Yorker. You know, they use great photographers. The Atlantic and New Yorker don't use a lot of photography. Every now and then they put essays in, but they do. And the New York Times and the Post, you know, they're great. Plus, it's also fun when you're looking at the Times and the Post to compare like the Reuters images versus the Getty versus the AFP, like particularly in DC, you know, which is like my research focus is starting to focus on White House news photography. So it's like I'm particularly fascinated in that. You know, I'm willing to share anything I know and I have. So feel free to contact me. Jacob, what city are you in again? Are you still with us, Jacob?
He's north of Houston.
He's what?
North of Houston.
Okay, he's north of Houston. Okay.
You're still there, Jacob. There you
What
are.
was that? Sorry.
I was just going to say, in any of you, you know, contact your local paper photo staff and just say, hey, I'd like to shadow along if I can for a day, you know, or something, or at least come visit. I know in the COVIDian times, it's a little difficult, but I really say that is a really good way to just say, hey, I'm a journalism advisor and I just want to learn more about the process and how you guys do your work. Photographers love to have people watch them work, you know. I think I used to always like to have people tagging along. So depending on the assignment, of course, but or what I was doing. If I'm doing a long-term essay, no, but just, you know, the daily grind. And I used to like doing the daily grind, you know. But in any case, immerse yourself in photography. Look at good photography. You'll start understanding it more, and just critique each other, critique your students, have them critique you. And I think that helps a lot.
I lied. Stephen is north of Houston. Jacob, where are you?
I am in Wichita, Kansas.
There we go.
Okay, that's what I thought. I know somebody at the Wichita Eagle, a photographer there.
Who?
Travis Hain. He's one. They only have two. So, but I can get you in touch with him, and at least you can talk to him and get the ball rolling. So
Awesome.
there we go.
I have a couple friends at the Eagle, but I don't know Travis.
Yeah, well, that's a good way. That's a good route right there. The Eagle.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, Matt. Matt, who also has good connections in Kansas.
Yeah, my parents. I'm just kidding. My whole family lives in Kansas. No, I normally open up speeches and lectures whenever I talk to high school or college students by, you know, asking, you know, how many of you have a device in your pocket that can take a picture right now? And of course, they're all like, oh, I do. Everybody's got a phone. So everybody thinks they're a photographer now. Everybody's taking pictures, which is double-edged because, like, on one hand, awesome. Like, everybody's taking pictures. There's images in the world. There's content. It's awesome. But on the other hand, everybody's taking pictures. Everybody thinks they're good. Everybody thinks they know how to do it. And so our jobs as professional photographers and photojournalists is to stay one step ahead of them. And so, and that's when I go into my lecture of like, what I'm about to teach you is going to help you stay one step above everybody else. But that goes back to one of the earlier questions about like, you need to come with ideas. And so we need to stay, like whenever the new camera comes out and it's cheaper, let's learn how to use it better than the person that can now afford it. Like my 11-year-old nephew is flying a drone. He got a drone and he's out taking pictures with it. I'm like, whew, okay, now I got to stay ahead of him. You know, I just got to keep pushing this, push my creativity, my ideas to stay one step ahead of everybody else. And of course, you're going to get passed, and but that's my goal. That's how I approach it. Is like I just got to stay ahead of everybody else, and to say what everybody else has said as well is critiquing. And not only learning how to get critique, but how to give critiques, and how to ask the right questions when somebody's looking at your work. And I love to tell the story. When I was a student, I was at a conference, a NPPA flying short course, and some of you know what that was. But Pete Souza was there as one of the guest speakers, and he was giving portfolio reviews. And I remember all the K-Staters were like, "Oh, do we get Pete to look at our work? I don't know. I'm scared. Like, he's such a, you know, a titan of industry. Like, I can't. I can't bring my stuff to him. I'm not worthy of that." And I was so scared. And he looked at my portfolio, and he looked at one picture, and he goes, "That picture's atrocious. That's one of the worst pictures I've ever seen." And he just ripped it apart. And I was just like, more, tell me more. Like, and he ripped it apart, but told me exactly what was wrong with it, how I could have made it better. And it was, oh, it's so great. And so I try to stress that to students of, like, no matter what profession you're in, whether you're in photography or not, you're going to have a boss that tells you, "Hey, that sucked," or "Hey, you can do it better." And you need to learn how to absorb that and use it going forward. I just think that's such a valuable skill to how to critique and how to be critiqued. And so that's my closing thought.
Awesome. Even though now my students would just break down crying and run to my department head and complain, but that's a whole nother issue. All right, Scott, you get the last word.
All righty. Well, yeah, Pete Souza is a friend of mine because he used to work at the Tribune with me, and he said if he didn't make someone cry during a portfolio review, he did a bad job. So I'm the opposite.
No, that's why I couldn't go. I was like, he's gonna make me cry.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'm a bad critiquer because I just love all photography. But my final thought, I think, is the other day I saw a photo essay by a Major League Baseball player. He just happened to bring his camera and photograph in the locker room and in the dugout and on the field before games. And it was kind of like a COVID view of Major League Baseball. And, you know, he wasn't spectacularly skilled, but, you know, he had the two things you need to make great photos sometimes: time and access. You know, and he had the time to wait for moments to happen, and he had the access. And so one of the things, especially nowadays, is how to, you know, carve out the time, and also how to get the access to people who don't want to be photographed. How do you get on that coronavirus floor and document those moments? Or how do you know, follow around a firefighter shooting a wildfire? And those are some of the skills that you don't realize that you need. Is just, you know, how do you kind of get where you want to be to make great photographs and give you, you know, separate yourself from other photographers? Because, you know, like Matt said, everyone has an iPhone now, and you know, they all will expose photos correctly and they will autofocus for you, and you just have to be there. And so how do you get there someplace that's different? And that is one of the skills. I think I saw a movie once where it was like Brad Pitt being taught to be a spy, and his mentor said, "Okay, you see that window up there in the 5th floor of that apartment building? I want you up there in 5 minutes." And, you know, 4 minutes, 50 seconds later, he pops out on that balcony and waves down. And sometimes that's our job. It's like, okay, I know that's the angle I want. How do I get there? Who do I have to sweet talk to get there? And those are some of the skills that, you know, you don't get taught sometimes. So you have to work on your interpersonal skills, how you can schmooze people, how you can, you know, kind of, you know, work your way into them nicely, or, you know, or read people. So it's definitely, you know, getting to know people, and, you know, and kind of, you know, even if it's fake, sometimes you have to be a chameleon. You have to mirror people. You have to, you know, kind of sense, you know, what makes them comfortable, so you can kind of get what you need in a photo sense out of them. So I hope that made a little bit of sense, and it was a little rambling, but.
Agreed completely. And Scott has copies of his book if you need Christmas presents still, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. If you go to my Twitter or Facebook, I'm doing a photo sale. You can get Common Ground or my other book, Shooting from the Hip, for $25 each, or I can bundle them for $35, and just Venmo me or PayPal me, and I'll mail them off this week. So
And
just
he does it, so he'll even sign them for you.
I could even sign them for you for free, and might devalue them. But so yeah, if you're interested in that, just the info's on my Facebook page, and Twitter and Instagram, wherever you can find me. I think Bradley put up my Instagram account. There's, I think, a post from the other day that has all the info if you're interested. And
their Google Doc has your websites and all that stuff. So.
Okay, fabulous. Yeah, and if you go to the Common Ground, thebook.com or shootingfromthehip.com, don't get them from there. because then you have to pay full price. You have to go through me. So my publisher had some down times recently, so I got 2 pallets of books delivered onto my driveway about 6 months ago, and so I'm in possession of all my books. It's actually great. It's free money now, you know, so it's good to have the books, but my fiance is not too pleased that I'm taking up half our storage unit with photo books. But so I got to sell them. Got to go.
So, in Todd, in 2 years, we expect to be getting Christmas presents with Todd Mazel's book.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll pay full price for that.
Yes, so will I. Particularly if there's a driving story in it.
Right.
Hey, plenty of it.
All right, everybody, round of applause. Yay! Speaker types, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time and energy and effort. And I know it's that time of the year where we're all being pulled 1,000 different directions. So thank you for taking almost 2 hours out of your life to share these thoughts with students. I have shared your websites and social media accounts with the students. So I suspect that, knowing most of these groups, that they will be in touch with you and be looking for other things from you. So look forward to hearing from them. And you guys, student types, if you'll hang around for just 2 minutes, we've got a few logistics to deal with. And speaker types, thank you so much. And I will see you at some convention somewhere once things get back to normal in some time.
God bless.
Right.
All right.
Fingers.
Thanks, Bradley.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe, everybody. Scott, Matt, Todd, it was nice meeting you. Matt and Scott, it's good seeing you guys again.
Yeah.
Matt, I don't know if we've ever met in person or not, but it's great to hear you talk.
Yeah, good seeing you all too. It's been great.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right, take care.
Night.